Do you want some impressive aim? Then you need to watch these 16 aiming tips and tricks in the finals. All of these will work on both keyboard and controller, and they will take your aim to the next level. Tip number 1. Lower your sensitivity. Using a relatively slow sense, whether you are a controller player or a keyboard, will almost always improve your aim. This is because it allows you to take more smaller adjustments in your aim and avoid overshooting your target. Now you could make the argument that the high sensitivity is required for some movement techniques, but at the end of the day, hitting your shots is almost always more important than any sort of movement tech. You can pull off if you want precise, consistent aim, lower your sensitivity and follow the next step. Tip number 2. Learn where to look when aiming at your enemies. Should your eyes be glued to the crosshair or the enemies you are trying to shoot? Well, it depends. If the enemy is far away from you, I will say look at your crosshair while aiming because it allows you to focus on lining up your shots. If the enemy is closer to you, look at the enemy while aiming so you can better adjust to their movement. The exact distance itself is more of a preference, and depending on the weapon you are going to be using, it will be different. But what will never change is the importance of the next tip on this list. Tip number 3. Master your crosshair placement. So crosshair placement is very simple in theory. Always keep your crosshair when an enemy is likely to walk into it. Makes sense, right? The closer the cross is to enemy before you start aiming, the less adjustments you will have to make. Most of the players have terrible crosshair placement, bad habit of running around and staring at the ground. Stop this. The enemies aren't gonna pop up over the ground. So raise your crosshair and improve your aim. Tip number 4. Warm up before playing. Doesn't have to be anything over the top, but 5 minutes in practice range or one quick match will get you warmed up fast and you will play better in the following matches. Tip number 5. Hip fire more often. Now most of the time your aim will be better when you aim down sight, but you can't ignore the importance of hip firing. Every time you aim down sight, your movement speed will slow down. In close range battles, you need to find the balance between aiming and movement, ensure you don't get killed. You want to be able to move faster while you are shredding your enemies. So that's why hip firing is so good. All weapons do have different hip fire spray patterns, but you would be surprised how effective some of the weapons can be without needing ADS. And then there is also a little technique you can use to have perfect accuracy while hip. You want to start by firing your weapon while aiming down sight and then turn back to hip firing. Your first 3 to 7 bullets depending on the weapon will be the same as if you were to still ADS. Then you can aim down sight again and repeat this until you have to reload. Both these tricks that you can stray faster while you are in ADS, so the enemies will have difficulty time shooting you. But if that doesn't help you, you need to start thinking about tip number 6. Slow down and take your time. A lot of players, especially when the rank is on the line, tend to rush through their actions and make mistakes. You will run onto their screen and they will blow through you all of their ammo. Slow down and focus on making the most of each bullet you shoot. If you are using a sniper, take your time, aim for the head so you can deal the most damage possible. If you are using an automatic weapon like MP5, try to engage in close range and start firing when you did this. Tip number 7. Screen centering. The idea is that instead of aiming down sight and then dragging your aim to the enemy, you want to get the enemy centered onto your screen and then aim down sight. Since your sensitivity is much lower while aim down sights, this will speed up the aiming process. Tip number 8. Learn the recoil pattern of your most used weapons. The most basic way you can do this, get into practice mode and shoot the wall. You should be able to see the pattern on your screen. Now control your recoil. All you have to do is move the aiming input in the opposite direction. If you look at the AK recoil pattern, it kicks up to the right. Control the recoil. All you need to do is pull down to the left. Keep in mind, Embark does like to change the pattern slightly in their update, but no matter what the pattern is, you can abuse the way the game is coded. Tip number 9. Recoil smoothing. So normally, when you shoot most weapons, they kick up vertically, and it's harder to just pull down your aim. Instead of standing still and try to spray down, move your character left or right. With this motion, now you just don't have to pull down your aim, also you need to adjust horizontally. But this gives us an advantage. We become harder to hit, plus you can spray better. Diagonal aim movements are always easier for our anatomy instead of doing vertical moves. Tip number 10. It might sound weird, but sit closer to your monitor or TV. When you are closer to the screen, the game takes up more of your field of views. You can see the small details in the game easier, and of course there will be less distracting things in your sight. If you are gonna sit closer to your monitor, it will improve your aim, but you will have to follow the next tip on the list. Tip number 11. Take breaks to avoid fatigue. I have finally noticed after years of playing FPS games that I always play the best in the first few matches of the day. I will eventually just go offline. This is because you can build up a lot of fatigue and your aim will worsen as your fatigue build up. What I do is play until I start making poor decisions and missing my shots. Then I will take a break and go do something else away from the game. After that, you will return to the game with full focus and better aim. If taking a break doesn't help you to lock in your aim, follow this tip number 12. Change your crosshair. When you play the same game for hours, you will start to autopilot while aiming. What I love to do to concentrate is to change my crosshair. As soon as you change your crosshair settings, colors, the game has a different feel and it forces you to pay attention. Tip number 13. Invest in high quality equipment. A good monitor, mouse or controller won't make or break your aim, but having poor quality equipment will hold you back from your full potential. You don't need to go out of your way to spend a ton of money and the greatest gear, but if you have some money to spare, instead of spending it all on skins or other stuff, maybe you want to buy a new controller or upgrade your monitor. But even the best equipment out there won't help you if you don't follow tip number 14. Stay calm under pressure. You often see players start to play bad under pressure and miss all their shots. But then those very same players will have some fairly good aim while the pressure is pulled off of them. You probably notice the same thing. You are in 1v1, you can seem to land your shots. But then when you are 3v1 situation, you can easily laser down your enemies. This is all because when you start to feel pressure, you miss your shots. Stay calm and don't let the pressure affect how you play. Tip number 15. Adjust your field of view. There are two factors to take account when choosing your field of view. First, of the larger field of view will, the more you can see, but then your enemy is smaller target on your screen. When you lower your field of view, the enemy takes up larger portion of your screen, making it easier to hit your shots. Now it is true that no matter what your field of view is, it will take the same amount of time to perform well. However, the lower your field of view, the faster your sensitivity will feel. This is because with the lower field of view, your aim will move more pixels than if you are on a higher field of view. You want to find your own middle ground where your aim is the best. And the last one, tip number 16. Use your movement to help you aim. You shouldn't only be aiming with your aiming input. You need to use your movement keys to help you follow the enemy. So if the enemy is just left of your crosshair, take a few steps to left until you lined up with your enemy. This will help you to track your enemies much easier. So here's the tips, guys. If you apply these to your game, you will improve much faster. Thanks for watching. See you at the next video.